Thank God it's finally the weekend. Not gonna lie, it's been a pretty long week. And well, you know what that means. Time to dick around and watch some YouTube then. Huh. Can you beat Elden Ring with only Arcane? Sounds interesting. Wait a second. Those are summons. That's not Arcane. Why are the points into dexterity? That's definitely not Arcane.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Hey, it's Cody. Welcome to Chaos. And I'm here to answer the apparently still unanswered question. Can you actually beat Elden Ring with only Arcane? Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room before everyone starts spamming me in the comment section. Yes, you can beat the game with only Arcane. Obviously, there are others who have already done it. But I want to take a crack at it and add a few more of my own restrictions to it. So yeah, speaking of which, for the rules of the run, they're pretty simple. We can only level Arcane. Yeah, not really much to say. Now, for the sake of making this challenge a bit more challenging, we aren't allowed to use stat boosting items such as a dexterity not tier either. This is to limit my ability to use stupidly broken weapons such as the Reduvia, which would definitely just be able to carry me through the game, and that would just make the run too easy now, wouldn't it? Finally, I must also beat every shard bearer in the game. Yep, even Melania. I very much regret my life choices. As per usual, any failed runs or rules broken will result in me being punished. Keep an eye out and comment them down below. With that, let the chaos begin. First, I choose the Wrench class because I wanted to keep my other stats as low as possible. I had thought about running this on PC and modding them even lower, but then I remembered my computer is hot garbage. So yeah, that's not happening. I also wanted to give our Tarnished a Mystic vibe to fit the run, so I did a little digging online and I found a character that I like. Thanks, waifu. With that, I was in the game, died to the Doro boss, and arrived in Limgrave. After learning of our goal and obtaining our noble steed, we make our usual trip around the lands between, picking up runes, the physical flask, and of course, fashion. Next, we head to the Weeping Peninsula to pick up our weapon, the Morning Star. Its low stat requirements and ability to cause bleed are exactly what we were looking for and will be our main weapon this run. I knew the biggest hurdle going into this challenge was going to be the lack of health, so having a decent weapon like this to quickly end fights was the plan. Finally, we make a stop to Caelid to pick up the Poisonous Mist Ash of War, so we could go ahead and add some arcane scaling. With that, it was time to take on our first boss, Margit. We start the fight by casting Poison Mist, and then we just play normally. The combo of Bleed and Poison are more than enough for him, so yeah, not really much to talk about this time. We just sort of melt him on my second attempt. I may have accidentally fell off my first time. Oh well, this goes to show that Gravity is still the undefeated champ in FromSoft games. As we make my way through Stormvale, I grab all the smithing stones I can and get the Morning Star to +7. We also pick up the Claw Talisman for its increase to jumping attacks, and we're ready for Godric. And with him, we just focus on jumping attacks. A couple of these, and we get him to stagger, and with a poison proc, just like Margit, Bleed quickly takes care of the rest. Aside from just dodging and playing normally, not a lot to say. He's really simple. Moving on. Now that we're in Liurnia, I head to Stillwater Cave and fight the Cleanrot Knight for our second talisman, the Winged Sword Insignia. For those of you who don't know, what it does is it buffs our damage as long as we keep attacking. It isn't overly useful right now, but I figured I'd grab it while we're here as it scratches my efficiency itch. Next, we roam our way over to Rey Lucaria, where we subsequently run past everything trying to kill us until we come face to face with man's best friend. Look at that good boy, sitting there all polite. You want a pet? Oh, he's excited to see me. Okay then. Jokes aside, not much to say about the Red Wolf of Radagon. He can't one-shot us, and we're doing decent damage, so it goes down in about 7 hits. I do love the poor fella, but it just seems like we always end up bullying him. With the Red Wolf down, we make our way to Renala, and along the way I take a few big balls to the face.
What did he say?
We also say hi to Moongrum and find out his favorite song, Down in a Hole by Alice in Chains. I would have took him for more of a synth fan. Renala's next, and phase 1 was a cakewalk, as we go around slapping her and her kids, going into her rage, since the thick-ass books the kids are throwing remind me of my college statistics class. Unfortunately, we don't have quite enough to push her into phase 2, so we take out even more frustration from not understanding how to find Mew by doing another round of slaps, and this time we get her into phase 2 no problem. And then we just sort of beat her up some more. All she can do now is try to summon to slow us down, but since poison is already procced, it's just a simple waiting game to finish her off, netting us our second rune bearer. So far, this challenge has been an absolute joke. There's no way that this is any sort of flag, indicating that my life is about to become much more miserable for the rest of the run. Right? Well, we'll worry about that later. We have goodies to grab. We head towards Altus Plateau through the rune-strewn pass, taking down Makar, and grab the Ritual Sword Talisman from the Lux Runes after taking out Demi-Human Queen Gillica. This boosts our damage by 10% whenever we are max health, which with how little our HP bar is, there will never be a time when we won't be maxed out after a chug. So yeah, we also pick up any upgrades for our flask and any smithing stones we can find about before getting sniped by a gargoyle that I honestly had completely forgot existed until he jump scared the hell out of me. Finally, we grab the Kindred of Rot Exaltation from Seethed Water Cave, which boosts our damage by another 20% for 20 seconds whenever rot or poison is procced in the area. Now, at this point I may be procrastinating a little bit for the pain I know that waits me at the capital entrance. So instead we head to Caelid to face off against Radon, who admittedly was a bit awkward. Sure, he's super susceptible to bleed and poison, but I have to try to stay underneath him to avoid getting one-shot by his attacks. But the lock-on also makes it extremely difficult to see what he's doing, making it a very disorienting fight, which often leads to me getting killed. So after flailing and failing for a bit, I decided to use the Opaline Bubble Tier that I had grabbed from the Erdtree avatar on the Weeping Peninsula earlier. Its damage reduction allows me to survive one hit for the next 3 minutes, and it's extremely useful for surviving some of the late game bosses and gives a good showcase against the heavy hitting Radon. Well, it would if I didn't suck and immediately get hit as soon as the fight started. But hey, we did manage to win, so I guess it was useful? With Radon down, Nocturne opens up, allowing us to get the Black Whetstone, which is honestly probably the biggest boost in the run. With it, we can now throw on whichever of the Poison, Bleed, or Occult affinities as needed. For now, I leave it with Poison, which in hindsight wasn't the smartest, but oh well. Next we talk to White Moscovari and gain access to Mogwin's palace to pick up the White Mask. Yeah, they weren't very creative with names, were they? Almost like they copied and pasted a few things. Anyways, we convinced the nameless White Mask to kindly take a dip in the springs, grab his mask, and then do the only thing that matters in any Souls game. Fashion. I also go back to the Stranded Graveyard, as I wanted the Erdtree favor, and then collect Radon's Great Rune to give just a bit more survivability against the Draconic 3 Sentinel. If you think this is cheating and against the rules, feel free to comment down below what your favorite ice cream flavor is. I was always a fan of birthday cake myself. Anyways, with these upgrades, the Sentinel is not too terribly hard. Sure, he still hits like a truck, but with the extra stamina given by Radon's Great Rune and Erdtree favor, we can keep Wild Strikes up for a bit longer, and with the White Mask and Kindred's damage boost, we just barely managed to end it in a draw. Not how I intended to end the fight, but I'll take it. With the Capital Police out of the way, we gain access to Leyndell, and after grabbing everything that wasn't tied down, we take on Golden Godfrey, who is a bit rough due to being immune to both bleed and poison. Every time I miss time to dodge would put me just a sneeze away from death, and I quickly learned that his stomp move is one where you don't want to dodge away, or he'll catch you every time. He also moves around too much for Wild Strikes to be effective, so instead, I just had to get good and beat Godfrey for real. So we slapped on the Claw Talisman, and then we played a game of rock, paper, jump attacks. Turns out, Godfrey's biggest weakness is taking heavy balls to the face. Wait. Next up is the King of Curses, and he was kind of difficult as he is constantly moving and performing combo attacks. Normally, these aren't much of an issue, but with such low HP, his combos were more than enough to delete us, even with the Opaline tier. Our only real saving grace is that he is susceptible to both bleed and poison, though if we can get him to stop moving for a moment, then he should go down pretty fast. This took quite a few attempts to get down, but once we did, it was game over. We get him to stagger and then capitalize with Wild Strikes, which makes him bleed and go into his phase transition, where he quickly staggers again, and we blitz through his remaining health, which caught me completely off guard, and that's why I looked like an idiot and kept doing Wild Strikes for no reason. Mountaintop of the Giants really doesn't have much to offer, but we slip on our heelys to glide past everything, which means it's time for the fire jump. And we immediately start beating up on those cankles. And well, Bleed is king in this fight, so if you've ever had trouble with him, there you go. We also managed to poison him, which is just a nice way to keep up the damage while he rolls around. And phase 2 is pretty much the same, just chasing him around and using wild strikes when we get the time to whittle him down. Unfortunately, we're still very squishy, which does cause quite a few resets. But overall, Fire Giant was not nearly as bad as I was expecting. It was also after his fight that we finally reached our max level, capping out 99 Arcane. So any further boost would come from either upgrades or gear. Now we just need to... Wait, what's happening? Oh god, no, stop! I didn't mean to cancel my subscription to Only Trees. Well, there goes $40. In any case, we find ourselves in Farum Azula, where we start picking up as many smithing stones as we can before heading back to Leyendale to grab even more from the shutting grounds. It was also at this point that I finally started messing around with Affinity just to see what might benefit us most, and oh my goodness is that a lot of damage.
Nice.
I was actually kind of shocked by how much of a difference Occult made, and I wasn't even maxed yet. This also meant that this entire time, I've been accidentally making the run harder by limiting my damage. Whoops. We'll just call it a happy accident. After all, my suffering tends to be more enjoyable to you guys. Help me. Since Rot's Exaltation no longer served a purpose, we also pick up the Lords of Blood's Exaltation while we're here from Esgar, who we immediately asserted our dominance over by slapping him and his dog. We also take on Fake Moog while we're here, so I can grab the Erdtree Favor +1, which is just a direct upgrade from the first one. Don't know why I felt I needed to explain that, but maybe it's just because it's 4 in the morning right now. I know we don't technically need to beat him to grab it, but I figured we'd give it a go while we're here, and for the fight, I'd play pretty sloppily. But just due to how much damage we're dealing, I'm able to trade with him. And since this version of him doesn't have his phase transition, we can just keep wailing on him and secure the win pretty easily. And yeah, there you go. With my little detour done, it was back to Farum we go for the Godskin duo. And if you thought I wasn't going to use the sleep pots here, well, first off, why do you hate me? And who hurt you? Now, before you go running to the comments section with your passive-aggressive comment that is against the rules, Kevin, yes, I know it's you, Kevin, may I remind everyone there's a very clear and easy way to see that's simply not the case. As far as the fight, my plan here was to finish one off before they could even wake up, but we wait till they stack up, letting us get both of them in one pot, and then I focus down the Noble first, as he is the more annoying of the two, just in case we do mess up. But it worked like a charm. It worked so well, in fact, that we were able to buff, take out the Noble, and still had time for the Apostle, as he was still hitting the snooze button. So we take him out as well, and then we awkwardly stand around waiting for one of them to respawn, where I immediately throw another pot, bullying them some more in their sleep, and finish the fight with a flawless victory. I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty smug after destroying these two after all the pain they have caused me in past runs. After venturing a little further into Farum, I managed to grab the Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone, finally letting me get the Morning Star maxed out, and at this point, I was feeling very confident with my previous success and upgrades, so it was time for Malekith. And it ends up being a slaughter, but not in a good way. It turns out that if you have no health against this really speedy boy, it's not a good combo. His first phase as the Beast Clergyman is actually really easy, providing plenty of punishable openings and even letting me get a few staggers in with a bleed proc pretty quickly. But once in phase 2, the difficulty meter gets cranked up to 11. My attack opportunities are pretty limited, and pretty much any hit taken is a death sentence. I tried doing our tried and true method of just DPSing him down, but he was having none of it. His jumping nature meant I was just going to have to suck it up and get good. So I took a page from his book and also started doing jump attacks again, getting a hit in when I could, and this worked well enough. We do eventually get a stagger, taking off a decent chunk of damage, getting the furthest I had up to this point, but I felt my butt clench tighter than an altar boy on Sunday when I got hit by one of his aerial attacks, and then for some reason we survived. I legitimately have no idea how, as the same attack had murdered me countless times before. With the game finally giving me a break, I charge in, getting another bleed proc, and with one final swing, I just barely managed to take him down. Looking back over the footage, this fight took over an hour and a half of attempts to finally get him, and I really wish I could say he was the hardest challenge in this run, but yeah, about that. Back in Landell, it's time for the in-game boss rush, and first up is Sir Gideon, who is a complete joke, as I'm able to bully him into submission before he can even finish his monologue.
Give me everything.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me.
Next up was Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, and yeah, that's about right. While I used to not like his fight, I've actually grown to really appreciate him, as he happens to be one of the most fair and consistent in the game. That said, he's still a little tough, just a tad. Luckily, we are able to use what we had learned from Golden Boy earlier, which means I mainly stick to jumping attacks, which made his phase 1 a lot easier. I get a stagger, where I play greedy and trying to burn him down with wild strikes to get straight to Hoaraloo. I did mess up the timing a little bit, but luckily I was able to recover during his phase transition, letting me skip phase 2 entirely. Now against Hoaraloo, I finally used the Opaline bubble tier I'd been saving, just in case I'd messed up, which of course I do, because I suck at video games, and ended up getting clipped by one of the rocks as I tried to avoid the explosion. But this did give me just the push I needed, as shortly after I get another stagger, where the Greed Goblin takes over and I go all in with Wild Strike, just barely managing to burst him down right as he was about to curb stomp me. Not even close. But it is a good way to finish off such a glorious fight for a glorious man. Now before taking on Radabeast, I had some cleanup to do, so we head to Moog, who was infinitely less interesting than Godfrey. He does live up to his name as the Lord of Blood, however, because my god was he bleeding everywhere. Now since there's not much more to say here, and I'm not trying to stretch this video out for ad revenue, and I don't know if you've commented your favorite ice cream flavor yet, but if you want some more inspiration, I'm also a huge fan of strawberry shortcake. Now, going against Rykard, I was a bit conflicted. On one hand, I wanted to try beating him with my current setup, and prove myself as an absolute mad god of a gamer. But on the other, I'm a reasonably sane man and knew that with my minuscule health bar and his very disorientating attacks, there was no way it was even remotely possible for me to do so. At least, not without giving up my weekend, and I have a family and full-time job, so I can't do that. So instead, we pick up the Serpent Hunter, warp out, and get it to +10 before heading back. Rykard's fight is broken into two phases, with phase 1 being possible, and his second being literal hell due to his Rancor Storm, which has a rain of exploding skulls come from the sky, followed by him slashing his sword across the arena. And I can't survive this. If even one of his attacks managed to connect, I lose, mainly because I suck. Luckily, I don't have to deal with it. See, if we time his stagger to happen right before he raises his sword, it cancels the animation, and we can skip the attack altogether. And as long as we can keep up with the damage, we won't have time to perform it a second time. So after a couple tries, I do this, and thanks to the Serpent Hunter, we're able to finish the fight no problem. Moving on. Before heading to the Helig Tree and Melania, we still need to pick up the pieces of the secret medallion, so I make my way to Castle Sol and take on Commander Nile, who's sort of a pain in the ass. His summons definitely don't know anything about personal space. Luckily with our damage, I'm able to take them both out in just a couple swings, letting me focus on Nile. And while he buffs himself up, I do the same, as I was hoping to take him down quickly after he staggers, which surprisingly only takes a couple jump attacks to do. Unfortunately, before I can really get going, he's back up, charging his big fuck you frost cloud that had me severely panic rolling. But this also gave me just enough distance to survive. The little tyke then tuckers himself out once he's done throwing his tantrum, and luckily, this gives us another free opening to pepper him with wild strikes, and there you go, on to the next one. I then make my way up here so I don't forget to grab the left half of the secret medallion this time, and then teleport to the village of Albanarix to pick up the right half. With both pieces, we can now take the secret path towards the consecrated snowfields. I then make my way through Ardina to solve its puzzle so I can... Oh god, my back. But with the puzzle complete, we finally make it to the Helig Tree and can push our way through to Loretta. And surprisingly, she's pretty easy. We just stick close to bait out her melee attacks, since they are way easier to deal with than her annoying magic spam. Well, I still need to be careful as she still hits pretty hard. She's about as slow as they come when it comes to endgame bosses. So after keeping up the pressure and being a tad greedy, Loretta's down before she can really do anything. And in very stark contrast, we have Melania next, who most of you sadistic bastards have been waiting for. And luckily for you, and very unfortunate for me, she's about as insane as you'd expect. Let's quickly go over why. See this? This is waterfowl. It's pretty much the bane of my existence at this point. And if you don't know why, then hi there, you must be new here. Also see this? Pretty much any attack one-shots us. Not just phase 1. We die. A lot. How many times exactly? Well, this time I want to see if you guys can figure it out. I'll pin the correct answer in the comments below. You get to guessing, ladies and Vince. Vince? Gents. You know what? No, ladies and Vince. My lack of caring at this point should be a pretty good indication of my mental status right now. So thanks, Melania. Now, as far as the fight, for phase 1 isn't super difficult, as at this point I've died so many times that I know which attacks to bait out, so I've used jump attacks to get her to stagger, and there you go. Half HP before waterfowl. And then back up to here, to bait her to use waterfowl, and guide away, as it's pretty easy to avoid if you have some distance. And after a few more attacks, she staggers, sending her into phase 2, which is where the real problems start. Not only can she use waterfowl anytime she wants now, you can also summon a clone barrage that's easy enough to dodge at a distance, but if I'm anywhere near when she starts it, I usually just die. So, as I'm sure you can guess, this was a very painful process. One that we couldn't just brute force our way through. Or could we? As soon as she lands Scarlet Aranea, I buff with the Physic Flask, using the Stone Barb cracked tier for its extra poise damage. And while I still have to wait for certain openings, I have died enough times at this point to know which were perfectly safe to abuse. So I wait for her long sweeping swing, and thanks to the extra poise damage, I stagger her again, where I play extremely greedy and try stun locking her. But unfortunately, she was having none of it. She was so low, and I was terrified she was using waterfowl again as she jumped into the air. But the outer gods must have been favoring me this time, as I had taken her down far enough for her to perform another scripted Aranea. So I go all in. I don't even care if I'm taking damage at this point. She was so close.
Yeah! In your fucking face, fuckwad!
Finally, after literal days of attempts, I finally managed to put an end to her and end my torment. Now, only one more boss to go. Well, technically 2, but you know what I mean. With 2 of them back to back, I knew it was going to be pretty difficult, but with the adrenaline flowing through me from Melania, I was in my groove now. First up is Radagon, and I'm sticking close to him, as his range attacks are way more annoying to deal with. I also have to play very specifically, as I wanted to avoid his most dangerous attacks. And I mean I need to avoid these. I just die otherwise. Call it a skill issue or whatever. So I immediately start off by getting 2 free attacks in, and you'll notice that I'm once again doing a fight naked. That's because, just like with Melania, he pretty much one-shots me, and I found it way easier to deal with him when I'm light rolling. So I wait until he does one of his hammer slams, letting me get in a few more jump attacks, which wears him down, and I know he's getting close to his phase transition, so I risk it and go for a stagger with wild strikes, and it pays off big time. While he is immune to bleed, we are still doing so much damage to him, causing him to use Goldbreaker, followed immediately by Elden Shattering. I quickly roll into him to get a hit in between each swing, and then knock him out of the air right before he can finish me off. And now it's time for the Elden Beast, who I initially thought was going to be difficult. Turns out, he's pretty weak to my heavy balls. 11k, not too bad. With what little strength he has left afterwards, he tries running away, but once he reappears, our tarnished hero gives a slug god ding, one final thrashing, and I can confidently say that yes, it is possible to beat Elden Ring with only Arcane. Yo guys, thanks for watching. Unless you skipped directly to the end to see if it was possible, in which case, hey there. If you want more gaming shenanigans like this, then feel free to subscribe and hit the bell, or whatever people say on YouTube nowadays. Also, thank you so much for the support on the last video. Seeing how many of you enjoy what I made is on one hand conflicting, because that means you're a sick bastard that enjoys my suffering. but on the other means a lot, and I hope I can continue to make content that you enjoy. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and have an amazing day.